And there's nobody. You take Ruto, he has failed his economic plan for this country. You take Kalonzo, you take Baba, you take Musalia, whoever you take, and then put Jimmy. I don't believe any of them can debate and discuss the economic challenges of our country like Mr. Wanjigi will do. All the arguments which Azimio and even ourselves were making at the Supreme Court, if the declaration had been made in favor of Raila, Ruto's own lawyers will have been making the same argument. You simply go to every respective constituency, you conduct the elections, the party agents are there, the observers are there, you have all the election officials who are there, they all announce to the Republic what their results are, but that constituency we do our own tally. But for as long as we have bombers, that media is told, you cannot announce what the Mvita returning officer is saying at Tononoka Hall. You are creating room for manipulation.
Well, a very good day to you. Welcome to another exclusive and interesting episode of the Candid Talk here on Herman Manyora's YouTube channel. Such a pleasure to have you on board. Of course, my good name is Evan Sokini. Thank you so much for being a part of this channel, and thank you for tuning into these conversations that we do hope will actually help strengthen our governance system. But of course, our team is also on the ground trying to look at everything taking place in this country, and we'll bring you up to date with comprehensive analysis of everything political that is happening in this country and abroad as well. Remember, the King Charles III is in this country, and we are here. Of course, definitely today, I'm joined by one of the interesting lawyers, of course, legal minds and legal scholars whom we have within the country. Wakili Willis Otieno. How are you, sir?
I'm fine, thank you. It's nice, and thank you for hosting me.
Nice meeting you, sir.
Yes.
I think the last time I saw you was on TV, and at that particular moment you were sweating.
I was sweating because I was passionately litigating
Yes.
the issues of Kenyans on how their franchise as exercised on the 9th of August was being transmitted at Bomas. And you know, that is a matter of life and death. It's a question of the sovereignty of the people. And when a sovereign exercise is being conducted, it is important that you bring out the emotions of the people to whom you represent. I was in that petition representing the people. I was not in the Azimio legal team. My instructing clients were civil society groups led by Hele Khalifa, who is a human rights activist based in Mombasa, and has championed a lot of issues of human rights in this country. So I was there representing the people, and for the people, it was about their right to vote and the quality of their vote. For the other contenders, they were largely prosecuting their political positions based on the aspirations of the seats they were looking for. As we were about upholding the true wish of the voter as expressed in a free and fair election. Yes.
Now, for those of you who are actually watching us for the first time, this is our Wakili Willis Otieno, was actually one of the lawyers there, and of course, as he explained, he was part of that team that was litigating during the last presidential election petition at the Supreme Court. Of course, a petition that led to the upholding of the election of the president now, William Ruto, by the Supreme Court. There now, Wakili, let's get it here. Personally, I'm still looking at this, and of course, when I see you, I still remember your phrase of "piki piki ponki," something that actually sent the waves and netizens raging and all that. But then here we are looking at back and how things took place within the country. Do you think that perhaps we are heading in the right direction in terms of judiciary independence and everything taking place within the judiciary right now?
Where I see today, when you talk about judicial independence, it should not just be about independence. And it's independence from what? It should be about the quality of justice that Kenyans are getting from the courts. Of course, individual judges are trying their level best within what they are able to get from the state to ensure justice is available to the people. But one thing that you notice, for example, today in the morning I was in court, and you look at the cost list of a magistrate. Somebody has 22 hearings slated for today. The entire cost list was 92. I've left them still going through the call over. So they've reached number, by the time I was leaving my office, they were at number 16. What time do you think they're going to reach number 92?
Okay.
And you're talking about access to justice, because it should be about the quality of justice and which judicial officer, in your view, do you think can hear 22 cases? Hearings, not applications, hearings in one day. Of course, there is a serious challenge in the judiciary. Look at even, go to the Court of Appeal, some of the pending rulings that you file a case and you've even argued the applications. It's taking over 1 year to get that. And if you talk to even judges themselves, are they getting what is the promise to them in the Constitution? The Judiciary Fund is not fully operational. Some of the newly appointed judges, recently appointed judges, have not been able to even use their official cars. They're using their private cars to perform judicial functions. So there is so much that we can talk about in terms of judicial independence. And in my view, we are not yet there. We have what is now more pronounced is what you call decisional independence in decision making. But then there are other parameters which ultimately undermine that exercise of decisional independence of a judge. So we are very far from it, if you ask me, because Kenyans, I believe, are not getting the quality of justice that they deserve, and that is the promise in their constitution. Yes.
Well, thank you so much, Wakili. Somebody would ask, now that you are within the legal profession, how has your journey been? How did you actually end up being here? How did you find yourself in this space?
I went to school in Moi University. That's where I did my undergraduate.
Okay.
Then from Moi, my passion was always law. I believe it's part of my human fabric to pursue the right course, that which is just, that is morally right. And I'm not talking about just applying the black letter of the law, because if you were to apply the black letter of the law, then even colonialism was right, because it was legal. Because the law allowed segregation, it allowed colonization, it allowed slavery. So sometimes my social fabric does not look at the black letter of the law. I look at what is morally right and just, that which, when applied to any human being, they'll feel that the caliber of treatment that they are subjected to is morally just and correct. So that is my passion. So I went to school in Moi University, then I went to Kenya School of Law. I was privileged to do my pupillage in the firm of Oraro and Company Advocates, under the tutelage of George Oraro himself, Senior Counsel, the late John Ougo, Chacha Odera, and Pamela Gere. Those are the people I say shaped now my practical experience in litigation and legal processes. Along the way, I've met many people, many Kenyans who in different spheres have held my hand and showed me the contours of law. One person that I will specifically mention is George Kegoro, who was my first employer at the International Commission of Jurists, and we were working on human rights and good governance. That is the program that I was attached to. I also happen to have worked closely with Maina Kiai and Hele Khalifa, and those two are the ones who, in a way, chaperoned me into public interest litigation. And one celebrated case that there's nobody who will ever argue a case in this country without mentioning that case is the case of Maina Kiai versus IBC, which case we did together with Maina Kiai, Hele Khalifa, and Kitur. And that case was about, again, the giving the sanctity of the voters cast in the polling station. Because previously we had witnessed IBC turns the national tallying center to the determinant of the vote. And in the Maina Kiai case, we went to court and we got a judgment that a vote as cast in a polling station is final. And IBC has no business interfering with that vote once the presiding officer in any polling station has made a declaration. Of course, they've been trying to find ways to circumvent Maina Kiai, but it is what I call the locus classicus in the conduct of elections in this country. The polling station still remains the primary focus that elections must be conducted. So I pay homage to Maina Kiai, Helef, for people who have shaped my legal and public, specifically public law litigation in this country. One other person that I wish to mention will be Jimmy Wanjigi, my party leader. Jimmy, we met with Jimmy in 2017, and I had theoretical knowledge of politics and elections. But he introduced me to Raila Odinga, Baba. And with that, I got what is called front seat experience in politics, so that the theory that I've learned in elections, I was now able to put it in action. I was made the Raila Odinga campaign manager for 2017. I mean, if you've never even managed an MC election,
somebody would wonder, how do you manage that position?
Because I had the theory, and I understood. No, one thing about elections is called end-to-end thinking.
Okay.
And when I met with Jimmy in our conversation, one thing he was able to quickly discern was that at that time I was doing minor case, that this guy knows how to think about the end-to-end, from the voter to the declaration. That's the kind of thinking that you need in an election, so that everything you do towards an election, the ultimate of it is the currency of the election, which is the ballot paper and the election result declaration forms. And on the election day, that is all that will summarize all the things you've ever done, all the campaigns, all the memorabilia, the billboards, the heated debates. All of that is reduced into a result declaration form. And whoever is thinking along those lines, that you understand that it's not about just going out there to campaign. It's not about the large crowds. It's not about the suave speeches, the fake promises that Kenya Kwanza made. It's about, ultimately, that results declaration form. So when we had our conversation, he was interested, he was intrigued that that is how I think.
Okay.
And he said, this is the kind of a person we need to be our campaign manager. He took me to Raila. And in 5 minutes, Baba told me, I confirm, this is the kind of brain that we need in our campaign. And at that time, I committed to, I used to call them my two principles, that my journey with that election will end when Baba takes the oath. And if the election is stolen, we'll be able to demonstrate that theft. Of course, I was vindicated when on the 1st of September 2017, the Supreme Court of Kenya, led by retired Chief Justice David Maraga, came out and cold morning boldly declared that the election of Uhuru Kenyatta, the re-election of Uhuru Kenyatta was null and void.
That was in 2017.
It was fraud with illegalities and irregularities, and they nullified that election. That to me I was vindicated. It meant that the currency that I took to that election was affirmed in a judicial process. And subsequent to that was the hallmark of that assignment was when on the 30th of January 2018, we took Baba to Uhuru Park, and he was able to take the oath as the People's President of the Republic of Kenya. So at that point, I had finished my assignment as a campaign manager.
You were part of the Miguna-led team, the TJ.
Of course, Miguna was the oath administrator. I was the oath drafter. I was tasked with the responsibility to draft the oath in a way that upholds the wish of the people, but also does not expose anybody to an act of treason.
But if at all the wave of treason would come, then you'd actually be swept by that flood as well.
Yeah, I mean, at that point we were ready to die. I mean, if it's a question of your life, you are ultimately in a country.
Okay.
If your vote cannot count, then what business do you have to be in that country? Even death becomes a welcome promise. Okay. I mean, you don't fear death when you're doing some of these things. And of course, God is with you. If you're doing the right thing, as I've said, me, I'm driven by justice. If you're doing the right thing, the Almighty will not allow injustice to overcome that which you're doing. It's about belief.
Okay.
So on that assignment, after I did prepare the oath on a Conqueror paper, hard copy, put it in a nice folder, and got a Bible, and I handed them over to Miguna to conclude. And he fearlessly and boldly stood at Uhuru Park to administer the oath. And I mean, Miguna, you give him his kudos. He was bold enough to stand forward and administer that oath. As you know, there are some people who had initially been approached or had offered, but towards the time, people started shaking and they will withdraw from being the administrator of the oath. And we had done even a mock, an earlier one, a private mock oath, because we had said liwe liwalo.
Okay.
Baba lazima kule Biblia. And he took that one.
No. Wakili, I actually now understand that you've been at the center of all this, and you actually understand how elections do take place in the country, even in terms of litigation and all that. When the Supreme Court in the last election actually declared itself and unanimously agreed to uphold the election therein, of course, the president right now, William Ruto, came forth and he said very well that for the first time, we've had the most transparent, verifiable, and fair elections. An election that has never been actually held in the country back then. I wonder whether you also hold such kind of opinion, or if at all you hold a contrary opinion, then how long do you think we have to get there as a country?
I think the most freest elections we ever held as a country, based on, and maybe I should have mentioned this before. I previously worked for an election body, an NGO that supports election processes. And in that role, I was able to observe elections in all the 5 regions of Africa: West Africa, East Africa, Central Africa, Southern Africa. And I can tell you that, and I've done even elections where a ballot was conducted using pebbles, right? People vote using, you're given a pebble, and you go and cast a vote. That was in Gambia. The freest elections we ever held in this country, in my view, was the 2002 presidential elections. The one that comes secondly close to it was the 2007. And the 2007 elections, because of its free and fair nature, people were able to quickly see when things were going wrong. Right? So that the fact that Kibaki was declared the winner does not mean that elections are not free and fair. They were free and fair to the extent that when something was going wrong across the country, we were all able to see the point of departure, right? And that is what led now to the crisis and ultimately the 2 protagonists coming together to form a coalition government. So an election that is free and fair is one that everybody should be seeing how their vote is being transmitted from the polling station, how they cast their ballot, and how it forms the declaration of the winner of that election, or the results of that election. But the last 2 or 3 elections that we've held, 2013, 2017A, 2017B, and 2022, in my view, those elections do not meet the test of free and fair elections. And if you talk about the 2022 elections, you know, the first component of a free and fair election, it's not about the election day. It starts from way before. Even right now, as I'm sitting here, we are going through an election process. The balloting will take place on the 10th of August, 2027. But the election process is ongoing as we speak. And if you look at even how Chebukati handled candidates, people who had expressed themselves to be candidates, it was through a very opaque process. I was Jimmy Wanjigi's running mate in that last election. And the manner in which he handled Jimmy Wanjigi's nomination as a presidential candidate, it was suspect. He was on a show to chaperone a particular set of candidates. In fact, one IBC official inadvertently mentioned that they didn't want a long ballot paper. When does IBC acquire the mandate to decide the length of the ballot paper? Because the process should be free to everybody. Even if you have 200 presidential candidates, let them be there. As long as they all meet the minimum qualifications, let them all be there, let them contest, and then the people decide. That is what democracy is about. The election management body, that is IBC, cannot be the one that starts the election process by saying, predeterminedly, that our ballot paper should not have more than 5 candidates. Where do they get that mandate? So it means you already rigged that election even before it commences.
So you are saying that is the basis upon which Jimmy Wanjigi's candidacy was actually rolled out?
Purely, the whole thing was about reducing the number of candidates. Because if you look at the reasons why they blocked Honorable Wanjigi, it was on a very flimsy ground that he didn't have a university, the graduation certificate. And yet the courts had stranded themselves on that question that you don't need a graduation certificate. You just need to demonstrate that you've gone to university, you've concluded your case, and you've met the qualifications for the conferment of that award. And this is something that had been litigated before. Governor Joe served in Mombasa based on having concluded his education at the university. And the court said, yeah, he's met the qualification. But when it came to Mr. Wanjigi, the goalpost shifted. But be that as it may, we are where we are. We all saw the outcome of that process, and that is what is going to pain this country.
So
even going forward.
Okay, had Jimmy Wanjigi been allowed to actually vie at that particular moment, then it'd actually be on the ballot as well as the running mate for alongside Jimmy Wanjigi.
I was the running mate. I was and in fact, I am still Jimmy Wanjigi's running mate in the next elections, whichever time it will be called. And I do believe that where we are today, the problem of this country is the economy, and there is nobody. You take Ruto, he has failed his economic plan for this country. You take Kalonzo, you take Baba, you take Musalia, whoever you take, and then put Jimmy. I don't believe any of them can debate and discuss the economic challenges of our country like Mr. Wanjigi will do. He is the only person who understands what the pain of the people of Kenya is. He understands what the problem is, and he understands what solution can get us out of this economic malaise that we are going through. If you recall, in July last year, after Chebukati had successfully managed to lock us out of the ballot, Jimmy produced a report, a forensic audit report on the national public debt. And he said that time that this is going to be the determinant of this country. The public debt is going to cause so much pain to the people of Kenya, untold pain to a proportion that no Kenyan has ever lived through. And we are here today. That time people didn't pay keen attention to it. But today, if you ask me, there is no Kenyan who is going to deny that Kenyans are going through a serious economic pain. And that pain, Jimmy has been able to explain, emanates from public debt.
Okay, I want us to get into that conversation, but then let's clear on this issue of elections and of course talking about electoral justice. I asked you that now that you've actually told me that you don't believe that these previous elections were free and fair as it is said by the president, or as the IBC chair, former chair, actually put it. What do you think will take us to get to that point where we can all agree as a country that this election was free and fair? Or does it mean that it only becomes free and fair when it favors an individual?
You know, all the arguments which Azimio and even ourselves were making in at the Supreme Court, if the declaration had been made in favor of Raila, Ruto's own lawyers would have been making the same arguments. Let me give you an example. Mr. Chebukati decided to print 2 result declaration forms, 34As, Book 1 and Book 2, right? When that was discovered, that he was printing 2 result forms, he decided in a meeting with political parties that Book 2 of 2 will not be distributed to polling stations. It will be held in Nairobi. When he went to elections, Book 2 of 2 was distributed to all polling stations. What did that do? You ended up having an election where you had 2 sets of result declaration forms. Now, a presiding officer could use either of those 2. There was no accountability of what happened to the Book 2 of 2. In the Supreme Court ordered scrutiny of the elections, this is what they asked. Because me, in my petition, we had asked that Chebukati should produce all the Book 2s of 2s. And the court ordered that they produce those Book 2s of 2s. There was an order to that effect. When we went to collect the Book 2s of 2s, IBC went back to court to say that to collect all those Book 2s across the country will be a logistical nightmare. Then they decided to limit us to the polling stations, which are Azimio. Now, again, it's not our petition. They're using Azimio petition as the basis. That let's use the Azimio polling stations to sample those Book 2s of 2s. Fair enough, I took it. They brought 48 polling stations. Book 2s of 2s. I mean polling station ballots. So we opened them and scrutinized. Of the 48 polling stations, 25 polling stations had used Book 2 of 2. And Book 1 of 1 could not be found. Right? You know the mischief of Book 2 of 2 in our elections, you just don't understand it. Many Kenyans don't understand it. Because in 2017, how we were able to capture Uhuru Kenyatta in his irregularities was that they had used fake forms, right? When we asked for a scrutiny of the election forms, when we went for the scrutiny exercise, we were able to flesh out some declarations were made using false caps. Some forms didn't have security features, they didn't have serial numbers, they didn't have watermarks, and those ones were not originally from IBC. So what Chebukati did was that he decided to create 2 sets of genuine forms. He called one Book 1 and one book 2. So anybody who wanted to manipulate the elections could use, you write the genuine ones in book 1, then your fake results you put in book 2. Then you dispose of book 1 and use the book 2, which you can fill on your way to the constituency tallying center. And you post those are the results of the election. So you understand? So that even if you went to scrutinize the forms, you'll still find that the form that is being used is a genuine form. So that was a major problem in our elections. Now, going forward, how are we going to get to the election that we desire?
Actually, that's what I want to say.
And my view that if we are to be guided by Article 138, presidential elections in Kenya, and as upheld by the Maina Kiai case, are to be held in each constituency. We have 290 constituencies. So each constituency should be conducting the presidential elections in their constituencies. And the returning officer for that particular constituency, upon conducting a tallying of the votes, should be standing up to make a formal announcement of the results of his constituency. And all Kenyans in their respective homes should be able to do their own tallying. So that we say, Sarai constituency, because they vote at the polling stations, they count, they announce, they close that polling station. They transport from Starehe to from the polling station to the constituency tallying center. For Starehe will be Kenya Polytechnic. So you get to the Polytechnic, the arrow for Starehe will say, okay, which polling station is it? Nururuno. Okay, Nururuno, these are the results. He enters. The next polling station, Riverbank, you enter. The next and it's done in the presence of the agents, the media, the local voters. People are still there. They are at the local level. Once he's done with the tallying, he stands up and he makes a declaration. These are the results in respect to Starehe constituency. Right? Once he makes that declaration of the results for Starehe constituency, in my own, I write Starehe constituency, Jimmy Wanjigi, 34,000 votes. Kalonzo Musyoka, 5,000 votes. William Ruto, 200 votes. Then we go to the next one. Which one? Who is ready? Mvita is ready. They do the same process. The PO stands up, the arrow stands up, makes a declaration. Jimmy Wanjigi, Mvita, 25,000. Kalonzo Musyoka, 2,000. William Ruto, 2 votes. And we are all doing our own tallying progressively until we have done an announcement of all the 290. Then I'll be able to know, based on my own tallying and the open display and announcement of the results, who has won this election. In the United States of America, they conduct the election on the 20th of November, the 4th year. Right? Early morning of the 21st of November, the president-elect, President Obama, will stand up on the 21st of November and he will say, I accept your election as the President of the United States of America. Right? Based on media announcements that are informed by the constituency returns. Because it's done openly. Do you know when the election management body in the United States of America meet? They meet on the 4th of December. Yet on the 21st, Obama had accepted his election. Secret Service had moved in. The transition process has kicked in. But the formal announcement, the legal process, what we do in Bomas, has not been done. It's done on the 4th of December. Almost 2 weeks later. Right? So, what stopped us from doing it based on our constituencies? And that is already in the Constitution, Article 138. You simply go to every respective constituency, you conduct the elections, the party agents are there, the observers are there, you have all the election officials who are there, they all announce to the Republic what their results are. Per that constituency, we do our own tally. But for as long as we have bombers, that media is told, you cannot announce what the Mvita returning officer is saying at Tononoka Hall. You are creating room for manipulation. Because you've created a new tier of elections at what is called the National Tallying Center that will manipulate. Somebody has a bird's eye view of all the results, and he has a chance to decide how to recalibrate those results and introduce fake forms. That is what they did in the last election.
So in short, you're saying it is possible we can have free and fair elections if at all we decide as a country. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I hope we'll get to that point where we will feel, all of us, that we are having free, fair elections in this country. Allow me to stop this conversation at this particular moment. But of course, will bring you up to date with comprehensive analysis of everything taking place in this country. Kindly give us your comment on the conversation that we've just had here with Wakili Willis Otieno on matters elections in this country and electoral justice. Till we have this conversation again, have yourself a lovely day. My name is Evans Okini.